Cassie got 2 episodes, but Ashley only got half? Not really fair. Hey everyone, and welcome to Ranger Rant. As always, I'm Marshall9234. Today I'll be discussing the 5th installment of the Psycho Ranger arc, Silence is Golden. Silence is Golden is the best story in the Psycho Ranger arc. I enjoyed the last episode more because of TJ, but this one is the penultimate push of the Psychos. It even had all the Psychos and Astronomer working together. But even being written by Judd Lynn and Jackie Marchand, it had its issues. Now, like all the other past episodes, this one is adapting Mega Ranger's 42nd episode, Lose Them, the Evil Stalkers. The basic plot points like the Psychos going human, scanning for Ranger voices, and even Zane being a clown are used. Now, thanks to the Rangers confusing the Psychos in 5 of a kind, they have to rely on finding them by memorizing each of the Rangers' voices. This is an interesting plan. Not many villains would normally think of this, but it brought up some issues. Why wasn't this done in the last episode? Remember, the Psychos absorb the Space Ranger's memories and other abilities. This plan would have prevented Psycho Blue from being killed off in the last episode, and we also find out that the Psychos can memorize data from other Ranger colors. Why didn't they do this for everything else? If they had the ability to absorb all 6 of the Rangers' memories, they wouldn't have had issues finding any of them. Now, another thing I have to complain about is Astronomer's plans. It's great that the Psychos and Astronomer are working together without constantly arguing, but Astronomer's plans are never consistent. In the beginning, she wanted the Psychos to kill off all the Rangers, then didn't want the Psychos to fight the Rangers all the time, but now wants the Rangers captured? I understand her goal is to drain Dark Spectre's energy as long as possible, but she really should keep a consistent plan going. I know it's an issue dealing with using the Super Sentai footage, but even this episode could have followed Astronomer's original orders from the first episode. Now, for all the megaship scenes that don't really involve the main story, I like the extra detail put in. A lot of times in past seasons when a Ranger had to spout exposition, they just simply said it, but here we see TJ and Andros actually doing maintenance work on their sidearms and personal weapons, which I also like to point out are actually the show's props. Many times the production crew went to the cheap route and used the toy weapons. While the Psychos head down to Earth to locate the Rangers by their voices, Ashley and Cassie are having a relaxing day at the mall. Again, I really wish they gave the girls other things to do instead of shopping and going to malls. I did like how the story kept a lot of details set up in the past episodes going. Remember in the Rift of the Rangers, we found out that Psychos can go into human form. This was brought back up here. The fun thing is the actual voice actors of the Psychos play their human selves too. This is a rarity in any TV show. Voice actors are usually just hired for their voices. Like, for example, Rita was voiced by Barbara Goodson, but Carla Perez played the on-screen Rita in the US footage of MMPR. Now, while the Psycho Rangers are scanning the area, all the internal shots of their HUD viewing is from Mega Ranger. If you look really closely and freeze frame them, you'll see Japanese people mainly in these shots. This is another example of Japan being very kind and accommodating for America and having all the writing in English. Eventually, the Psychos hear Ashley talking on the phone and rush towards her. If you look really closely when Psycho Yellow locks onto Ashley, you can actually see Chisato, Mega Yellow, in her school uniform. It was also nice to hear Ashley talking to her family. At least it shows the Rangers do have lives outside of being Rangers. When the Psychos finally got to the phone booth, Ashley had already left and someone else was in there. I was really surprised that they actually allowed Yellow to have her arm out ready to punch her. Power Rangers always has this really confusing censorship problem when it comes to dealing with civilian fights and punches. You can show kicks and fancy flips, but face punching is a big no-no, so Yellow holding out her arm is a rarity for Power Rangers. Luckily, Ashley was able to get back to the megaship without getting caught. Again, just like Rangers Gone Psycho, TJ was about to blow Cassie's cover. Sometimes I think the writers are doing a running joke with TJ doing this. Since I couldn't call Cassie on her communicator thanks to the Psychos knowing the sound, Andros used Cassie's pager. If this episode happened today, this scene would have still played out the same, but Cassie would have had a phone and gotten a text message. I always wondered if this pager was the same one given to Carlos by Sylvie. Now for the infamous baby scene. This was the best scene in the episode. The writers got every small detail, and you can't really think of another way Cassie could have avoided it. I even like how they threw in Cassie having allergies to throw off smarter fans into thinking how the Cycles would have found her. This is the type of writing I want from PR on a usual basis. They didn't treat kids as idiots here and spoon-fed them everything. Since Cassie couldn't use her morpher in public, she had no other option but to scream out. Some people could argue, why couldn't she run towards the baby carriage? Look how far she was where the baby is. No matter how athletic Cassie is, there was no time. She either would have had to blow her cover as a ranger and morphed. The Cycles would have heard the morpher activating, caught, or screamed out. The only other real option she could have really done was let the baby fall to its death. Now for Zane's moment. Once Cassie got cornered by the Cycles, Zane came in as a clown and actually distracted the Cycles away, giving Cassie enough time to meet up with everyone else. But this scene had some flaws. The biggest one is, why didn't they scan Zane's voice? You think after they fell for the Cycle Silver bit, they would never let him take advantage of them again? If this happened in real life, Zane and Cassie would have been caught. Thanks to the combined power of all 6 Rangers and the Cycles only having 3, the Space Rangers finally were able to stop them. Although this episode's roll call felt weird, everyone was saying Power Red, Power Pink, etc. Why didn't they just say Red Ranger, Pink Ranger during the roll call? It made me think they were referencing how Super Sentai does the roll call. Just like the other episodes, Cycle Red, Black, and Yellow have monster forms. In Space, again, didn't name them, but Mega Ranger called them Neji Phantom, Neji Vulgar, and Neji Sophia. The Megazord fight was also the best one in the entire arc. I complained Blue and Pink's fights made the Cycles feel weak since they were killed off so fast. This one fixed that problem. Now that the Rangers were fighting all 3 of them instead of just 1, they had to put out all the stops and use as many Megazords as possible. It was also nice to see someone else operating the Delta Megazord. This doesn't happen often, although I still wonder why the Astro Megazord wasn't used in the Zord fight. I assume either Deca or Alpha could operate the Astro Megazord on their own. Even in Mega Rangers, I wondered this. Thanks to their combined powers, the Cycles were easily able to hold off the Mega Winger and the Delta Megazord, overwhelming the Mega Voyager. They opened up a portal to another location and began pulling in the Megazord. Now, some people might confuse this to why this happened. For in space, you have to assume the Cycles have the ability, but for Mega Ranger, this is actually a normal power. The villains have this special ability to twist space-time, basically to move things great distances, which is why the Cycles are called Neji Rangers. Neji translates as twisted. Unfortunately, the Space Rangers were forced to abandon the Mega Voyager. I did like that Andros wanted to stay with Voyager. A lot of times in PR, the Rangers tend to not care about the Zords. S.p.d. and Ninja Storm are examples. The Zords are their trusted vehicles in protecting the world. You would get an attachment with using them for so long. Look at Green with Evil Part 4. When the Megazord was lost, the MMPR Rangers showed feelings toward it. And the most memorable moment for me was when Kim yelled out in horror when the Thunder Megazord was ripped apart in Ninja Quest Part 1. When the Mega Voyager finally got sucked in, I didn't like how the Psycho Rangers just left when they could have destroyed the Mega Winger too, but at least when they returned to Astronema and found out that she was using Voyager to lead the Space Rangers into a trap, they complained, why not get rid of the Megazord? I agreed with Ecliptor and the Psychos. Voyager should have been destroyed. It would have given the Psychos a better fighting chance in the next episode. Overall, I have to give this episode a 4 out of 5. The beginning of Silence had some issues and was generic. We had the girls again doing stereotypical stuff at the mall, and Zane was not there at the beginning. But when the Psychos came in to find the Rangers by voice, and the entire Zord fight was really good. And the writers doing their best to either cover plot points from past episodes, and also dealt with trying to make sure Cassie had no other option for the baby was a breath of fresh air. Power Rangers doesn't always like remembering past story elements. Later seasons even go as far as resetting the character personalities in order to get the plot moving. S.p.d. did this when they had an argument in one episode, learned to stop, but then argued again in later episodes over the same exact thing. If Astronema had kept her plan consistent, I wouldn't be complaining about that either. Her goal is to drain Dark Spectre and not get the Cycles killed. She should have ordered the Cycles from the beginning to not kill the Rangers. I also didn't like how Dark Spectre is kind of being dumb in this episode. In the last episode, he pinpointed where the power drain was coming from. But Astronema at the end of this episode, she said she was hunting around the galaxy. Now that you heard my thoughts on this episode, here are some of yours. As always, leave a suggestion below on what future episode you would like reviewed. And leave a review comment for the next Ranger Rant episode. I'll pick the 5 best ones and we'll feature them in the next episode. For next week's rant, I'll be discussing The Enemy Within, the 6th Psycho Ranger episode. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys right back here next week. I did like, however, how the show kept a lot of details set up in the previous past episode. Like, for example, Rita was voiced by Garba Good.